This podcast is brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel, New Brunswick's only 4-star hotel and a preferred hotel of Rutgers football fans. The Heldridge helps you make the most of your game day weekend, providing premium accommodations in the cultural heart of downtown New Brunswick. Restaurants, bars, theaters, parks, museums, and more are only steps away. Whether you're traveling alone or with a large group, book your stay at the Heldridge and make the most of your game day weekend. Visit theheldridge.com today.
As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at NFLSundayTicket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
From NJ.com and the Heldridge Hotel, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights. With your host, Steve Politi, and Rutgers insider Brian Fonseca. Let's start shopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the rant. We're both here. We're both bleary-eyed. It's day after 38-28 loss to Iowa. Brian, I want to start here because I'm driving home last night. It's about 2 a.m. And of course, get to the Cranford exits on the Parkway and 6 of the 8 lanes are blocked and I'm stopped and I'm exhausted and I start losing it a little bit. My mind starts wandering and I envision myself as an old man sitting in the Hale Center for Greg Schiano's press conference. And I'm sitting there in this little vision of mine next to my grandson. And I lean over to him and I say, "What'd he say, Sonny?" And my grandson looks at me and goes, "He said we're going to get there, Grandpa." "Oh, yeah, we're going to get there. That's right, Greg. We're going to get there. I hear you loud and clear. We're going to get there. Just a matter of time now, Greg." "Are you my grandson?" "Son, where am I?" I could be like Jeremy Strong from Secession and just stay in character, do some method acting. Let's do the entire podcast like this. "What happened on 4th down, Greg? Where was the kicking game, Greg?"
You should show up to Monday's press conference exclusively to ask a question in that voice. I mean, this is some top-notch impression right here.
I was the lead of my senior play. You can see it now, right? We did the Pink Panther strikes again. I was Inspector Jacques Clouseau in that play.
I totally see it. I mean, I want to give you an Oscar just from that 2-minute segment right now.
Thank you. The point being, I mean, it's just, again, I don't know. It's the same thing. There's always something. Like, you just think that this is the opportunity. This is it. You're right there in front of you. Scored 21 points. The first 3 possessions against a team you had scored 17 points against in the previous 4 games. Look like you're going to score 50 points. They lose. They always lose.
Yes. In a vacuum, this one game, right? One could accept Rutgers losing this game. I mean, it's a huge missed opportunity against the top-tier Big Ten team at home, big crowd. Sometimes these losses happen. The fact that in these games over the past, 20 years, Rutgers has always lost them. I think it's the compound effect. I think if you beat Illinois last year, instead of losing it in the most improbable fashion, this is forgivable. But it's just another opportunity gone by the wayside. I know the Washington game last year is something to point at. Washington ended up not being as good as we thought. And maybe Iowa ends up not being as good as we thought. But they look pretty damn good. At least they look pretty damn good offensively against this Rutgers defense because, man.
Yeah. They're going 6-6 that Iowa team. I looked at the schedule. Like, I don't think anything special there. But again, and I understand. I asked Greg the question, and this was the other thing. Like, I'm just like out of things to ask. I'm just sort of and I asked him about the offense. Like, what happened? And his answer was probably true. Like, offense that's not the problem. I mean, we had 28 points. We had 400 yards. That should be plenty. But it wasn't going to be plenty. I don't think I felt like it was going to be plenty when it was 21-21. Like, you have this opportunity. It looks like you're going to score all these points. That's your strength. You've got the best quarterback you've had in 10 years. You've got an NFL receiver who is quite literally ripping the ball from the hands of Iowa defenders. Like, it's one of the best games I've ever seen a receiver at Rutgers play. Like, that's, Kenny Britt never did that. You know what I mean? Like, this was just a different level, a next level. The best player on the field was on your team. And he scores 7 points the rest of the way. Like, I get it. You missed a couple of field goals. But, there's some play calling there that I scratch my head. We talked about it late in the game. It's 2nd and 9, I think. This is the drive. Rutgers still has the ball. They just gave up the touchdown, which was so predictable to Iowa. But 5 minutes left. You've got your offense on the field. I thought they were going to win the game. And it's 2nd and 9, and you hand the ball off and inside run. Or is it 2nd and 10? But whatever it was. All right. Now it's 3rd and 9. Now you're up against it. And that's when the interception happens.
Yeah, a lot to go off there. One, Ian Strong, 4 for 4 on contested catches. Sorry, I'm very bad at this presentation thing, but he caught this pass. This was a completion. Like, he was making plays like this and
getting mugged. The guy took his wallet on that play.
Yes, and he still got it. The mugging thing is another thing we could talk about. It seemed like people, and I don't necessarily disagree. It did seem like Iowa was very physical in their secondary against the Rutgers receivers, and the rest probably could have called a BPI every other possession, but I digress. I think this game confirmed to me essentially what looked like the first 3 games, right? Like, this Rutgers offense is the best they've had in 10 years. They're going to need to be the greatest offense in Rutgers history, or certainly to the level of 2008, to give themselves a chance in these games, because this defense is, reaching the levels of the era where they look. Another screenshot here. This was on the first defensive possession for Rutgers. Look how open this Iowa receiver is.
He found the right guy there, didn't he? Yeah, I see him right there. He's the one in the middle of the field. Got it.
You and I could have found him probably, 1, because of how open he was, and 2, because of how much time Gronowski had. It's just, 1, I think the fundamental thing is fair that they brought up early in the season, because it just seemed like guys didn't know where to be. Like, constant miscommunication on the defensive line. I'm assuming it was planned out, but they would line up in like an I formation and then like seemingly pick spots on the defensive line at random. And then that would end up not working because Iowa just bullied the Rutgers defensive line essentially. And
I'm going to push back a little bit on that though. At least the defensive line made a couple of plays. Like, Eric O'Neal got the big sack late. We were asking can this defense make a few stops? Made a couple stops. I get it. Like, it should. And the terrible penalty late on the holding call, which was a holding call. But at least they had a couple of moments. The defense. I don't know. I guess it's too generous to say that, to hold them to. They weren't completely terrible.
Yes, they didn't give up a touchdown on every drive, so that's a positive, I guess. But this is Iowa we're talking about, right? Like, Gronowski isn't Patrick Mahomes. Like, he looked good. He ran the ball well, but I think Rutgers made them look better than they are offensively, and that's the concern here. I thought, yes, the offense played well, right? 28 points, 400 yards should be enough. Ethan had another strong game. Like, he continues to prove that his progress from the offseason is legit. Some really nice passes deep. Here to me is, and I know we've argued about this again, this is the 3rd time we argue about this, but these were the first 4 drives of the game for Rutgers. They got 75 yards, touchdown, 63 yards, touchdown, 75 yards, touchdown, 56 yards, field goal that was missed because of a false start penalty that got Jay Patel out of his rhythm, whatever. The point being, the first 4 drives, they are moving the ball at will. Iowa cannot stop them. Iowa, every snap, is essentially begging Ethan Kaliakmanis not to drop back because he was 12 of 14 at that point, right? Rutgers had an offense that was instilling fear in Iowa's defense. Just think about that for 5 seconds. They have the ball with 1:33 left. They have a chance not only to score at the end of the first half, but they get the ball back in the second half. And in a game that's back and forth, it's going to be a 1-score game the most of the way. This is a golden opportunity to give yourself some leeway. And Rutgers essentially lays down and shows its belly and just is content to go into the second half with the ball. And that, to me, in and of itself, is a defensible decision. To your point, totally understand why they would do that. From there, Rutgers enters the second half with 2 straight 3-and-outs, right? Momentum is overrated. I agree. It's not the end-all be-all here. But to me, it just felt like Rutgers was driving 80 miles an hour down the Autobahn, and for some unknown reason, with no one in front of them, they just hammered on the brakes.
Yeah, no, you're starting to talk me into this. I'll give you that. You're right. You make a great point about it. I guess my thinking from a football perspective, I didn't second guess it at the time, so I try not to second guess it later. When at the time I'm like, I get it, and I get it because you're at the 10-yard line. It is still the Iowa defense. You got to get the ball back in the second half. If you throw an incompletion on the first play, 1st and 10, you line up, you see Ian Strong, the ball's knocked to the ground. Then you're essentially giving back the ball to Iowa around midfield if you don't get that first down with a minute and a timeout. Like, right? I mean, there's or at least a minute. I don't know if they have to burn their timeout to get there. Whichever way it is, they're giving their offense an opportunity to then steal momentum, get a field goal, maybe get a touchdown the way the game was going. I think that's what Greg Shannon was guarding against. But to your point, yeah. I mean, it was an opportunity. If you're saying, and the guy who was there in the first game who was going on 4th down every time because he knew he's going to have to do, he had to do it against Ohio. Like, he knew he had to get these first downs. He knew he had to score points. He knew he couldn't trust the defense. Yeah, that guy, you're right, rolled over on his back and went in his belly. Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's one thing to go for on 4th down against Ohio, right? It's another, and then just to completely revert against Iowa. It just doesn't right. Make sense. The Rutgers was 5 of 6 on 3rd down at that point. They completed their first 5 3rd downs. Even if the first play is a pass and it's incomplete, they're getting 10 yards a chunk through the air. They're getting wide open, and Athan is hitting his receivers. Like, again, it just feels like this conservative nature, like, of not wanting to lose the game. Greg talked a lot about Iowa will not lose the game. I get that, but that means that to beat Iowa, you have to beat them. You have to make big plays. And that was a moment where you had a real chance of making a big play. You're up a touchdown or a field goal entering the half. You come out with of the halftime with some momentum. And it just felt like the air came right out of the balloon there. And look, they still had a chance to win the game, right? They scored the go-ahead touchdown in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
They were up 21-24. And then they had to stop. And then they commit a penalty. That's the other thing. Just they could not stop shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and special teams blunders. It just, it all kind of compiled.
The penalties don't necessarily surprise me. Disappointing again. And hello, doggy. Disappointing, but it's kind of what they defensively. They're going to make mistakes. The special teams thing really did surprise me, and not necessarily the kickoff return for a touchdown. It looked like, we were watching it minutes after it happened. The highlights looked like a couple kids bumped into each other. They fell down, big gap down the line. If you got it there, yeah. It's if you guys watching, if you can see it on our screen here, if you're watching it on YouTube, it's pretty obvious. Like, it's just a massive alley for a good returner. Happens. The kicking game, though, it looked there were moments early in the season where they made some mistakes. The arms are getting up at the ball. You have this really reliable kicker to make a penalty there, to push him back. He still should have made the field goal. It's 37 yards. Then to have an even closer one, the shorter one, blocked. That's not characteristic of Greg Shannon's teams. Like, these are big mistakes. I was really surprised by that. And we're not even talking about, like, forget all, no matter what you think about the decision to press down the field versus go into the shell at the end of the first half. Kicking it to that guy was just inexcusable. Like, they dodged a major bullet there, because if he was 10 yards away from scoring a touchdown on that last play, and if he ran out of bounds, they would have kicked a field goal. Instead, he got tackled, and Rutgers dodged a tremendous bullet at the end of the first half with that play.
And that follows a theme of where things could have gotten worse for Rutgers, because Iowa also made a lot of mistakes. One, that special teams play, to your point, at the end of the first half was points they just did not get. They also missed a field goal, so that negates one of Jay Patel's misses. And on at least 3 occasions, they had offensive drives end because they completely botched it. They had a drop and a missed pass on the first drive. I think on their field goal drive in the second half, Gronowski had a wide open receiver for a walk-in touchdown. And without any pressure in his face, he kind of just underthrew it, and the guy dropped the ball. Like, Iowa practically gifted Rutgers some free defensive stops. So that's another reason that they just didn't take advantage of that. The special team stuff, yes, is head scratching, right? Again, let's say you negate that one Jay Patel field goal because Iowa missed one as well. That's still a 10-point swing between the blocked field goal and the opening kickoff. That's a huge difference in a game that's decided by 10 points. And if we're being fair, it was really a one-score game up until the last touchdown. That was kind of a consolation score from Iowa. But the point being, in a game where you play a team that doesn't beat itself, you can't then beat yourself, right? That compounds the issue there, and it just it's hard to square. Just not that they had special teams issues, but just the amount and the severity of them. Like, it was all at once. It's just like the penalties. They had not committed many penalties all year, but when they did on Friday, it was just so many of them and at the worst possible times.
Right. All right. Well, we haven't even touched on the big picture thing here, which I think is most frustrating for people around this program. Like, this was, proof of concept from Rutgers can be a big time attraction game, right? Like, I mean, the student section was packed to the gills. There were 3,000 students came up from Camden and came down from Newark on buses. And this is during warmups. The traditionally late arriving crowd, and I get more of the longer I do this, I get more of an understanding of why this happens. Like, one of my friends is just texting me, I'm waiting for, we got on the line for the bus at 7:15, and he shows me a picture of the line for the bus from the rack. Like, things you're like, oh, and then he got there at 7:55, and like, here's the line to get in now. So it wasn't like, I see these things, but still, even all that said, even with what is just always a problem getting people into the stadium, people are in the stadium. Like, they were there for the light show, and the light show was great, and the atmosphere was great, and the crowd was angry. Like, I thought it was a different crowd than the Washington game, which was great, but it was kind of like, hey, we're here. Let's have everyone's kind of talking, having a great time. Like, they were really into this game. They were invested in this team, this moment. To send them home disappointed again, it's rough. It's rough. It's just a momentum killer for the program as a whole, Yeah,
again, similar to last year, where you're 4-0 and everything is the wind is behind your back, and then you just lose 4 straight games in the season. All that was built up kind of crumbles, right? And then you build yourself back up, and you have a chance of upsetting a top 25 Iowa, and then it all crumbles again. Yeah, that's the thing here, right? Like, Rutgers is building itself back up. It's building a foundation. It's doing all the things it should. It's getting to a certain level, but it just can't break through the glass ceiling of that big win. Whether it's a ranked win that they haven't had in 16 years, or just a win against these upper echelon teams. To your point on the fan experience, 8:00 on a Friday night with 3-minute TV timeouts every 5 minutes. I totally understand why fans don't show up. It is a horrible product for fans. We leave later, so we don't catch the traffic, but to sit through that for 3.5 hours and then have to sit through an hour of traffic after losing a game like that, I would understand completely why someone would decide this isn't worth it. It's not worth to spend an entire day for all this. And that's the college football leadership catering more and more to a TV audience and leaving the common fan in the dust. That's a conversation for another day. But to your bigger point, I sensed a lot of frustration from people of just, here we go again. It's happening again. I get all built up. I get all worked up. This feels like the game. It feels like the season. And then, it just kind of ends in a whimper. And then for us, I don't want to speak for you, but it's hard for me even to get, worked up about this, because it just, it happened again. To your point about not knowing what to ask, you just sit there and you're like, this is just kind of what happens, I guess, right? Like,
I had a moment in the press conference. I don't know if you were there with Ethan Kalikmanis, and just trying to ask him. He's having this brilliant day, and then the pass gets hit, and the pass wobbles, and his interception, and he looks at me and goes, "Wait, what are you asking?" And I just look back at him and says, "I don't know. I don't know." Like, I'm just kind of, I don't know. Good question. Back at me. You got me. I have no idea. I'm kind of out. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how I feel about it. Talked out. There's no, like, even last year there was some outrage. Outrage is not the right word, but just like, come on, Greg, come on. Get, like that feeling when, especially when they lost to Wisconsin, they weren't prepared. They're 4-0, lose that game to Wisconsin. How are you not ready for this game? And then, come out and then lose the next week to a bad UCLA program. And you're like, then he's given that, that speech about, you get behind us now. And it's like, give me a break. There's like some outrage. This time, I don't think there's any outrage from him. There were no outrage from us. It was just kind of like, we should change the name from the Rutgers Rant to the Rutgers. It was just sort of like, okay, I don't know. That's how I felt.
The Rutgers spirited conversation.
Yeah, the Rutgers. Yeah, it's just like how two guys just kind of out of things to say.
The Rutgers brunch.
The Rutgers brunch. Yes. Yeah. All right, that's good. That's a good. What else you got? That's a good place to leave it. You want to take some questions? You got any points we want to make first?
Yeah, look, I think big picture, the season is still salvageable, right? I guess, but it just becomes so much harder because at the very least, you need to win one of these games at Minnesota or at Washington.
Right.
Because if you don't, then you have to beat Purdue and Maryland, and you have to upset one of the 4 teams you're playing that are in the top 10, right? Illinois probably is the most likely of those 4, but you're at a point where you have to win one of those games to make a bowl game, which again is the absolute bare minimum expectation for this season to not be a disappointment, a disaster, whatever.
Yeah.
I think Rutgers could beat Minnesota or Washington. I think Iowa might be the best of the 3 teams, but you play them at home. You're a 3-point dog. You have a great crowd. Your offense is playing lights out. It's just hard to think of that to expect Rutgers to be in a better situation on the road against these 2 teams. But yeah, I think these next 2 games combined are a must win. I'm not saying either of them specifically is a must win, but you got to win one of these 2 games.
Yeah. That's a good transition because that's the most popular question we got, like the big picture. Is there a reason I should stay checked in for this year? Someone asked. Is 6 wins still within our grasp? My favorite one, why do I keep coming back just to get hurt again? It's like a bad relationship show now. We could be like, what was his name? Dr. Drew on MTV back in the day. That's a good question. I think, yes, I will answer that. I do think there are reasons to come back. And it does come back to the fact that Rutgers scored a lot of points or looked like it was going to score a lot of points against a good defense. And that to me is the reason you stay engaged. It's a different feeling for me to have a good to have a good offense. And when you play these good teams, I don't know, maybe you just have one, maybe you have a great day. Maybe you catch them when, they make a few mistakes and maybe it's a close game in the 4th quarter against a good team. That's possible with a good offense. I never kind of felt that way when Rutgers was playing these great teams and they couldn't, get -1 passing yard. You're just like, well, all right, well, this is a loss. So it's at least a reason to pay attention. You're right. But yeah, I mean, it does deflate the expectations now. I do think the ceiling is like 7 wins, 6-6 would be a good year now. And, you've been there. This would be the 3rd straight year where you're talking pinstripe or Detroit.
It's one thing when you finally break through the bowl drought and you go to the Pinstripe Bowl and you win and it's all exciting, but you can only get excited for that for so many years before you want a 7-win, 8-win season, right? And losing to Iowa really lowers the percentage chance. This was a huge swing game of your chances of getting to those 7-8 win marks. So yeah, I understand why it's deflating. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. My dog went nuts, so you can go on to the next question.
Next question. Even our dogs are done with this. A lot of defensive questions, the same questions we've gotten, but it's like, is there anything about the defense that looks fixable? The DBs and the linebackers look serviceable, might be a bit generous, but the D-line getting shoved around constantly. Ugh. I don't know. What do you think at this point?
So that just reworked my brain. But my next point was, yes, you have a fun, exciting offense that moves the ball, but you have to use it. Right? Like Rutgers is, and this is not an original idea. Some other Rutgers podcast said this, but Rutgers is essentially a Big 12 team now, where you got to score points on pretty much every other possession at least, and you have to win these high scoring games, right? Yesterday for Rutgers to win had to be a 42-37 game or something like that, just because the defense couldn't stop Iowa. And if the defense can't stop Iowa, for stretches at least, it's not going to be able to stop these other teams. And similar to that vein, if you had beaten Iowa, I think there would be at least a little bit of hope of when an Oregon comes to town or when Penn State or you go to Ohio State that, I mean, maybe you don't feel good about an upset, but you feel like, hey, Rutgers might have a chance here. Like there's like a 5 to 10% chance. I think after watching that loss to Iowa, I think all that, any expectation of that is gone, right? So it's deflating in that sense as well. The defense, yes. Really hard time against the Iowa offensive line. No surprise there. Iowa's offensive line is really good, but the miscommunications on the back end that led to wide receivers being wide open multiple times. Gronowski just having room to run in so many times. Sometimes it looked like they had no idea what Iowa was going to do offensively, and I just don't think Iowa runs that complex of an offense where you have to think that much. It just feels like there's so many issues and so little time to fix all of them that I just don't see it. I think the reality is clear that this is not a good defense. And I think part of that is scheme, part of that is lack of talent, and part of that is a complete lack of cohesion from slapping together 6 new guys and hoping that would be good enough. And it just hasn't been so far.
Right. Yeah. And it now looks like it lost Moses Walker, linebacker, one of the key players, was carted off. Never a good sign. I would be surprised if we're not getting, story eventually saying that he's lost. They don't have guys to replace him. And I think the other part of it is, I think when we look back, when we do the autopsies, too early for that. But when we do the autopsy on this season, we're going to see that Greg Schiano did not have a great go with it in the transfer portal. And this is an area where he's been pretty good finding guys who can plug in, finding guys who they can afford, who are fit. He uses the word a lot about culture. And it doesn't look like he struck out a couple of times. Might be too early to say that definitively. It's starting to look that way.
Yeah, I just think it proves his point of where, in an ideal world, Rutgers uses the portal to fill specific holes. And that, to an extent, was obviously in the offense, right? It worked in the offense because, yes, you got a tight end, you got some offensive linemen, but for a majority of the offense, you have returning production. You have a running back coming back, your quarterback, your receivers, the middle of your offensive line, your right tackle. Those are returning guys, and you plugged holes, and the result is the best offense in 20 years or whatever. And then on the other side, the entire defense is being revamped. Essentially, your entire secondary outside of Kosh Sanders, your defensive line, both on the ends and on the interior, your linebackers are the only area really where you're not getting an extra guy. So it's hard to. It was a lot to expect for Schiano and the entire staff to revamp the entire defense and hit on every guy. Right. The thing I'd say though is that it didn't feel like they hit on one guy. Like it's not like there's one guy that's playing extraordinarily well and other guys are struggling. It's like all of them are really struggling. Jet Elad is having a really rough go of it. The cornerbacks have not been particularly great. The defensive line, Eric O'Neill, I will say, has been good the last 2 weeks. Bradley Weaver hasn't been quite there. It feels like nobody outside of, again, a couple of really good plays from Eric O'Neill has stepped up, and that's what's concerning to me. It's just that as a whole, the unit has been great, and there's just not been one guy that's like, all right, this was a really smart investment, a really good get.
Right.
And right. I just don't see that changing.
Right. This is another question along those lines, because depth is a factor for a place like Rutgers. Why do we have so many injuries every year? Seriously, not one Iowa player went down last night. We have 1 million injuries. What is going on? I don't know. It's great. And it's not, it's funny. Like I've talked to people on the program. It's not because like the easy theory is always like, well, they must be working those guys too hard in practice. That's not my understanding of what's happening. We don't watch it. But that's not my understanding. Is there any explanation for that?
I mean, the easy answer is horrible luck, right? I don't think it's satisfactory. People want something to blame, but I mean, Noah Shaw looked like he tore his ACL or something in his knee, right? That's just unlucky on the first play of the season on kickoff. Moses Walker yesterday was non-contact, just kind of turning to chase the quarterback, and something clearly seemed to go wrong there. CJ Campbell just got rolled up on, right? That's just kind of Dante Chin got rolled up on. It seems like, I think obviously the fact that it's happening every week is a very big part of the frustration. And the fact that last year was really hampered by injuries, I get it. I just think that some of it is, most of it is just really bad injury luck, because I don't know what exercise one could possibly do during the offseason to protect yourself from tearing an ACL or from, an offensive lineman rolling on your ankle. And not satisfactory, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah, I can't. And I got to tell you, I can't let that be. It just can't be an excuse again, though. Right. When we're doing the autopsy of the season, and again, week 4, we're not doing it now, but man, if we're sitting there and it's just another, if it weren't for those injuries, it's just, I can't go there. I can't go there again. I'm sorry. Like you get one of those. Last year was I get it, not special. It was an extraordinary number of them, 2 important players. You lost your best linebacker and pass rusher and before the season. Your next best linebacker, your heart of your defense was limping around against games. I mean, we saw it, you watched it. I get it. And this year, I ain't going to do it.
It's frustrating to hear, right? But I mean, to be fair, they lost the starting defensive tackle, probably their best defensive tackle. They've lost their starting, probably top 2 left tackles. They just lost a starting linebacker in all likelihood. They lost one of their top 2 running backs. Like, I agree with you in that unless Ethan, heaven forbid, or Ian, heaven forbid, or any of these guys, these big guys, those are season-ending injuries, right? If they happen, that's one thing. But there's also the factor of the sheer amount of them, right? Like there are 8 guys out for the year. If Moses Walker's added to the list, that's 9 guys, and it's happening every week. If that keeps going, it's hard to, default to not point to that as a reason. But I will agree with you in that the defense is not struggling because of injuries, right? Rutgers did not lose that game against Iowa because of injuries. They lost the game because Iowa was better.
Right. Will this team make a bowl? That's the final question. Put your prediction hat on. Where it is now, 3-1 with the schedule left. Are we going to be sitting in Detroit on Christmas? And by we, I mean you. Just to be clear, I mean that in the broader general. Will we be sitting in Detroit on Christmas?
Me and my 5,000 closest Rutgers fan friends.
Exactly.
We'll make the trip.
At the Greektown Casino, elbows up at a craps table the day instead of spending it with your family. What do you think?
I think they will make a bowl game only because it's hard to envision a reality where they don't. That would be a very bad sign for Rutgers. It'd be a step back for the program. It would be a waste of again, I keep repeating this, but their best offense in almost 2 decades, their best quarterback of the Big Ten era, it's looking like at this point. And I think, I don't think anyone looked at this Iowa game as, okay, you have to win this game to make a bowl game. This isn't Purdue and Maryland. It's not great to start off this way, but if you beat Maryland or Washington, you're right back in a spot where you should make a bowl game. So if I had to make my bet today, I would bet fairly confidently that yes, Rutgers will make a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to beat Minnesota on the road next week. And then, you're looking at what we thought we were looking at, right? A 6-6 team. That's kind of where this is. And then we spend the rest of the year wondering, if they're going to hold serve against Maryland and Purdue. Let's see how Maryland and Purdue look between now and then, and if they have a puncher's chance at beating one of the 4. Then that's kind of what the season is right now.
Right. The Iowa loss again is not catastrophic, but it does make it hard to make a bowl game. It does essentially eliminate any shot of their first winning record in Big Ten games. You pretty much have to go perfect against all of the non-top 10 teams. And it's your point on the 6-6. Like, it feels hard to imagine Rutgers finishing with a winning record in the regular season, right? Like 6-6 at this point feels like the ceiling because they'd have to sweep Minnesota, Washington, Purdue, Maryland.
Right. Yeah. And that's the frustrating part because again, it was right there. I mean, that this was an opportunity, not a great Iowa team. You're cooking. Yes. The Rutgers. That's exactly it. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
The other thing too is like the way the schedule is distributed, like Rutgers will not get back home for a month, right? They're going to go on the road. There's a bye week. Yeah. They're not coming back to homecoming against Oregon. And then that game has a chance of being a disaster, right? It legitimately has, it depends what Oregon's mood is, but they can really make it a hard game for Rutgers. And then they don't get back again until November, right? Because then they have 2 road games after that. So Rutgers fans it's going to be a rough home season to go from that brutal loss to Iowa, in all likelihood, a bad loss to Oregon. And then you have to wait until November to play Maryland in a game that is going to be filled with tension because you have to win that game. So it's not going to be a very enjoyable season at home for. And again, the first 3 games of the season, you're playing in tighter than you want games against MAC teams. So season ticket holders, I don't know if they're getting their money's worth necessarily, but it's going to be not the greatest home slate of all time.
Homecoming against Oregon. There you go. That was probably not the greatest idea. I understand why it happened still. Yeah. All right. Let's log off there. I don't know. I'm kind of out of things to say. We'll be back later in the week. We will pick the Minnesota game. Hopefully, we didn't talk about it. Hopefully we'll have another great guest picker. Gio Rashino on our show this week was just awesome. And I'm going to blame, I would have picked Iowa if I didn't have to look into his handsome mug and do it. I'm going to use him as the human shield. Kind of ruin Gio's wedding weekend by picking Iowa as he's sitting in front of me. No, I couldn't do it. So that's why I got it wrong, Brian. You agree with that?
I agree with you, and you said it in the moment, to be fair. This is not revisionist history. You said it in the moment, so credit to you. Thank you to a few people who told us that they enjoyed Gio's interview. We appreciate Gio coming on, and we appreciate people giving us very nice feedback. So hopefully everyone keeps doing that with our future guests. But yeah, I thought it went really well, and I think it's a fun change of pace from people listening to us drone on and on and on. Someone actually exciting and insightful could join us every once in a while.
It's almost like they're sick of us. How could that be? Like wow, you had someone else on the show that wasn't you. It was like they're breaking up with us without actually doing it. It's not you, it's you.
Yeah. I did think it was funny that a couple people thought that our first special guest was just going to be Lanny, and I wish we did that because that would be so funny if we hyped up like, oh, this guy is going to come in, he's going to change the pot. It's just Lanny. Hey, Lanny, by the way, who's the biggest winner in all of this? I'm sure he's thankful that he didn't pull up into his driveway at 3 a.m. last night after the Iowa game.
Sitting in on the Garden State Parkway in traffic. Yeah, absolutely. He's the biggest winner. That guy. Jerk.
The Big Ten should abolish these 8 p.m. kickoffs. This is terrible for the fans, but more importantly, it's terrible for us media guys. I mean, just absolutely brutal. Get out of the Greg's press conference at 12:30. You got to go up and write, and people don't even want to read what we write because they're so sick of the loss. It's just, I know people have hard lives, but they have to start thinking about the plight of the sports writer. Just brutal.
Absolutely. It's about time someone advocated for us, and the hot dogs at halftime weren't even all that good. I got to get out of this profession before it's too late. It's too late already, Grandpa. You're 87 years old. You're still here covering. What? Where am I? We'll get there, Greg. Okay, signing off. Thanks for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate. Any condition guaranteed. Best 5G scores, root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
Doug.
Limu and I always tell you to customize your car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. But now, we want you to feel it. Cue the emu music, Limu.
Save yourself money today. Increase your wealth. Customize and save, we say.
That may have been too much feeling.
Only pay for what you need at LibertyMutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.